Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on wherever you are tuning in from. I'm Stefan Pazzo alongside Noah Brinkworth. Back from being under the weather there was Noah last edition. We had Benji Reese. This edition, of course, we've got Connor McHale. You'll see his lovely face on the screen, and he'll be coming up soon. But as always, before we get into it with Connor, Noah and I are going to chew the fat on what's happening around the world of Ultimate. Noah, first, how are you?
I'm doing much better, Steph. Thanks very much to Benji for stepping in for me. And you guys had a chat about World Juniors, and now that's happened. And it was a really exciting tournament, as we thought it might be, Steph. And
Yeah, it certainly was. You were there behind some cameras. I was at home watching very intently. Certainly, as that one went deep, I was watching more and more intently. In fact, on finals day, I was at a cottage away, and I was not a very great guest to the people who were hosting me because I was like, I gotta go again. I got 30 minutes to enjoy a meal, then I got to sit in front of a screen. I know I'm out in beautiful nature, but shit's going down right now, and I'm not missing that. So I did actually miss bits and pieces that I watched back of the mixed and open final. I did not miss a second of the women's final. That was the most exciting one. Noah, the U.S., the whole world cheers against the U.S., not because of a hate, but because they are a powerhouse. And, with the joint juniors championship last year, the French did so well. The French women last year in Padova, 2 years ago, then last year in Padova, the French women dominant on the European scene. And there was this sense that if there was a team, it was going to be the French women. I think everybody was behind them early, and that first game in pool play, maybe we'll start there because French had them in a severe headlock. 10-4 they got up to. Tell us a bit about that game because it was crazy.
yeah, luckily I was behind the single camera on that one, so I was super lucky to get that game. And I remember that the US made some kind of early mistakes, some drops. I kind of thought throughout both games that the French women were way better at catching the disc, right? Throwing, you could argue both ways. There are some incredibly technical throwers on the American team and some really reliable and excellent throwers on the French team. But yeah, there was a few drops there, and the French women's zone, confused, made life difficult for the US. They go up 10-4. It was sort of, I think it was 8-4 at half, and you're like, oh, 8-4, like this is going to be a difficult chase. And you get to 10-4, and you're like, oh my god, like
It's
where's this
over.
going? Like, is it going to be a Germany USA at the World Games sort of thing where they pull away and there's not really even a fight at the end? But there very much was a fight at the end, and it wasn't French. The French's the France team's game on that one. An amazing universe point, like some calls, some amazing layout Ds, really disappointing drops.
5 turnovers.
Yeah, it was kind of like you draw up the universe that you perfectly want. Amazing plays, like a terrible bad moment, and an amazing finish. Maybe you want the French to win, but you also recognize that it's power pools, and sometimes winning early for a team challenging the US can not be so great in the long run. But, one of the anecdotes of the tournament was that Margot Nissen, one of the French stars, had the opportunity to play for the American women's team and the French women's team. Chose the French women's team. Thought they had the what it took to beat them, and they didn't in the power pool game. But Steph, in the final, that was a different story.
Yeah, final. I think it's probably a good thing in the end that they lost that game in that fashion. I mean, it really woke them up and had them very focused. I thought they made great adjustments from one game to the next. Zoe Forget, I thought she got taken out of the second half of the first game. The U.S. addressed her well because she was dominant in the first half. She was back in the final and dominating again. They took a big lead, not as big as they did in pool play, but took a comfortable 4-0 start to the game and didn't take their foot off. The U.S. fought and fought, but the French were really that much better, and they had the chance to prove it. I mean, so many great players on that French juniors team to look to keep your eye on for the years to come. Swan, Lefebvre, Lacoste, no turnovers with the amount of touches she had in the final was incredible. Camille Blanc, those two are on the French senior side as well. I thought Camille Blanc has been just getting better and better. She is, athletically speaking, one of the best out there, throws her body around, lays out into around for anything. The Mabe Condescend, great distributor, great athleticism. That team was complete top to bottom. There's so many good contributors. And you talk about Margot Nissen and other, like it was going through the hands. You're like, she's been playing up Perez, another one. We can keep saying names and say, oh yeah, that was another great performance. Anna Bergamaschi didn't play too much in the final, but had a great week. And I had the pleasure of coaching her 5 years ago and seeing her as like a 14-year-old playing. So seeing her playing, it's pretty cool seeing this junior tournament. It really is a tournament that on all continents has to be a showcase, because it is just like, it's the unknown. It changes so much from year to year. Like the names change, the style changes. They are the trend makers, are the juniors. And the French women stole the show from WJUC 2024 in Birmingham.
It was a fantastic performance, and you should go and watch the game. Let's move on to the other divisions, though. In the open division, we also had a French team take on the US. And Steph, what did you think about that game?
Yeah, good game. I mean, I think in the open division, the US were a step ahead. They were the stronger team. This was a team that was they were pushed throughout the tournament, but any time that they were pushed, their response was that much stronger. They were head and shoulders above. Final score in that one, 15-11, was as close as any team got. French put up a pretty good finals performance, as we expect from the French juniors sides. Now they are turning into a powerhouse of their own. But US just dominant in getting through that one.
Yeah, I thought that
your thoughts?
I thought that the French played a great game, to be honest. I agree, and I think maybe the top end of the US women's team was similar to the open team, or maybe even better, but the depth that the USA open team had was really, really impressive, and will stand them in good stead for U24s coming up next year and for the World Junior competitions. Some standout players from France: Enzo Stanguinek, Oliver Gilbert, Quentin Prachard, all kind of led the stats. It was a great performance, but I think the 15-11 kind of reflects the ability of the two teams. I'm really interested, Steph, like if you have any insights. You live in France, and what's happened in the last few years that has made France be so awesome at the junior level?
Yeah, it's a good question. I'm not too sure. Like, I mean, the coaching, the coaches for the women's under 24 are the same coaches for the mixed senior level coaching. So like they are investing in the coaches as at least the continuity, like keeping the same people. I know that across all divisions, all age groups, they try and have some maintenance of their tactic, of their culture. But I think there's just a lot of keen, I don't know, elder statespersons that have a lot of pride for their clubs, that have taken on roles of recruiting and getting junior programs going. They don't jump off the page from a local perspective. Like living in France, I'm in Nice now. I don't see many juniors playing here. I was in Paris. ISNO club, I must say, they do a great job, and they're probably amongst the lowest. I don't think there was any ISNO players on either of those three teams that come from the ISNO Yaka club, which, again, the strongest. Okay, Chak can argue, but as far as a both open and women's club, the strongest one there. This is coming from these juniors are coming from all over. I think somebody said 14 clubs represented on the women's team. Like, it is like,
Wow.
I don't know how they're recruiting them, what they're doing exactly. It is not glaringly evident, but whatever they're doing is working.
I've heard rumors that it's kind of getting into the school system in France. I thought that the top athletes that on the French teams were actually better at times than the US, and certainly better than the field. Some like amazingly talented players. Let's move on to the mixed final. That was USA versus Canada, and a similar scoreline to the open final. Was it 15-9?
Yeah, identical.
15-11.
15-11.
I think that for that game, I thought that the Canadian O-line was well matched with the USA D-lines. Right, those points were great to watch. The Canadians would kind of be able to just get away with it, and like get through most of them. But it really didn't ever look like the Canadian D-lines were going to get a turn on, or going to get a break off the USA mixed line.
O-line.
I think some standout players for Canada, Kai O'Donnell. He was fantastic. Probably like one of my standout players of the tournament, especially like had a huge game in the final. And Rex Yuan, kind of more of a thrower on that O-line. He was also fantastic. But the US had the best player in the division. I think Adam Grossberg was unbelievable, particularly had an amazing final. I think he racked up like 8 or 9 stats.
Yeah, he's got 9. He's got 5 assists and 4 goals. He put it. Sam Grossberg,
not Adam
Grossberg. Yeah, he was off the charts for that game and throughout the tournament by the looks of things. So I think that's a great assessment of it. That is the game that I saw the least of. I was probably a little bit in and out of the pool area at the cottage I was at for that one, and kind of catching a couple points at a time and sneaking around for it. But there was also some other games in the mixed division that garnered attention. The Hungary versus Singapore. Noah, did you hear about that one?
I certainly did. I think there were times when filming the other game, we were slightly more interested in what was going on 100 meters away from me on the satellite fields. Well, not satellite fields. So the all access multi-world fields, and there were 2 cameras spending a lot of time filming Hungary Singapore. One of the longest ultimate games of all time, Steph. Certainly.
It's a bloody shame. The bloody shame that happened. Hungary has had a bad rap for quite some time, most certainly since 2019 when they hosted EUC, and everybody kind of got a really good glimpse of what's happening and the fact that their politics were so questioned internally. Zoltan is the name that comes up most frequently. Zoltan. When you talk about Hungarian ultimate, and it's not in a good way, never in a good way. He, has a bit of an iron fist kind of administration style. It's my way or the highway. I'm putting the money in, or I'm finding the money, or I'm putting in the hard yards here, cutting people for the national team, for the inclusion of the youth, to get the youth program going, which happened. The youth program was good, but when they're playing with this must win with no regard for spirit, I heard on an ULTI World podcast saying that the game advisor system is broken and spirit is broken and it should all be the US style. I disagree. I think like there are individuals that are, there should never be a game that goes this long. Yeah, it doesn't happen too often. And I think the sanctioning is a bigger deal. When people do take advantage of it, you sanction them. I mean, it's one game and how many years that goes this long on a world's level. But I hope that there are strict sanctions. I think they are suspended for a year, is what I've heard. Maybe I'm wrong about the duration. They will not receive their medal, not even be stripped of it because they didn't receive it. They've got 30 days for an application to appeal. No indication whether that's happened or not yet. And we also don't know what exactly will happen with those bronze medals. Will they be given to Singapore automatically? Should this stand up? Shameful. You know what? We better go because we got to bring in Connor McHale here. We got more time to talk at the end. A whole bunch more that is happening in and around Ultimate all around the globe. Thanks for joining us. Let's bring in Connor McHale. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you're tuning in from. Thanks once again for joining on Best Perspective. I'm Stef Pazzo, as per usual. And this episode, this week, this month's guest, Connor McHale, coming in from London, the Clapham resident, a 6-time UK champ, 4-time EUCF champ. He's got himself 1 Euro title. Last year, you saw him over on the other side of the Atlantic as well, playing for Chicago Machine, made himself all the way into the final there and took home a silver medal. Connor, thanks for joining us. How you doing today?
Good. How you doing? Thanks so much for having me.
Pleasure to have you on. Want to pick into your brain here, see how you've gotten this far in your ultimate career, and so we'll just start kind of at the beginning, I guess. Your discovery of ultimate, when did that kind of happen? What was happening in Connor McHale land when you found
many moons ago? It feels like now. So it was a weird story, actually. I went to a Roman Catholic school where every year one of the sixth form or like seventh year students attended like a religious type retreat. It was kind of like a camp, and it wasn't for me. I wasn't, and still not really a religious person, and so kind of let people go off and do their thing, and they work on kind of like personal skills and interactional skills, and kind of using religion as a base for that, kind of to help promote that. And one of the activities they did on site, so I've heard, was ultimate, and so a lot of the guys, a lot of the students came back from that, absolutely loved it. They'd bought discs, they'd had discs to give away at the camp, and so people came back and they loved it. And it just so happened that my school had some discs sent to them by the UK governing body, and so they kind of clicked on that people were loving it. They got them out. It was back when it was still the UKUA rather than UKU, so I've still got one of those discs sat at home somewhere, my first ever Ultrastar. So kind of just got into it a little bit through that. Discovered Brodie Smith online. A lot of his tutorial stuff I can still remember going through. And so then when I attended Sheffield Hallam, the ultimate sign-up desk.
Quick interruption. Take us back. Like what year? You said way back when, but approximately how long ago was that?
So this will be 2011 into 2012. I kind of discovered it for the first time, but then didn't start playing until kind of attending uni. In the second half of 2012, where the ultimate sign-up desk at the sports fair was directly opposite the athletics sign-up, which is something I'd done for many years prior. And I remember standing with my friend and saying, "Shall we sign up for a bit of a laugh? I'm sure it'll be fun." And that was September of 2012. Started playing club in around 2014, so I spent about 18 months or so kind of dabbling with uni stuff and getting to know it that way, and then played my first club season going into 2014, and end of 2014, going into the GBU23's trials cycle for London in 2015.
Okay. So tell us about, say the university again one more time. I heard it, but I didn't catch it completely.
Sheffield Hallam. There are
Sheffield Hallam, okay.
Yeah, and there are two universities in Sheffield.
And then talk about when you did, like you've had your trial here, you played a little bit. What was your first club jaunt there? Are you from Sheffield? Are you from London? Not far from Sheffield.
I grew up predominantly grew up in a village called Edwinstowe, which is pretty much smack bang between Nottingham and Sheffield. So that was kind of one of my closer universities. My very first club experience was London Calling 2014, and it was because my club captain at university was from Cork, was from Ireland, I believe, and he was looking for pickups for Rebel. So Rebel Open played in Tour 1 and London Calling back in 2014, and I picked up, and that was my first ever club experience. There is a infamous clip now of a certain situation happening in the Clapham versus Bad Skid game, which I'm sure many viewers will know about, the infamous water bottle kick. But in and around that clip, you can spot a very young Connor asleep on the sideline, exhausted from his first day ever of Club Ultimate. So that was my first, and then after that, Sheffield Steel was the local club to me. So I'd started training with the club side in Sheffield, and that was through kind of the full winter season of mixed tours, what we called it in the UK at the time, playing with Sheffield Steel, and eventually with Leeds, the Open team, moving into 2015, which was where kind of my first experiences with UK nationals and U23 trials and whatnot came around that sort of time as well.
Was that a move to Leeds for Ultimate? Was that something where you were traveling to go to training? Did you relocate to be part of that team? Tell us a little bit about that once you took it. I guess that's when you start taking it a bit more serious, it sounds like.
Yeah. So I'd been living at home with my parents still this entire time anyway. So this was still kind of my young 20s, and was very happy to travel. Was traveling up to Sheffield anyway for a lot of practice and weekly stuff. So when Leeds kind of came a calling, I remember at the time thinking, this is a big step up. I really want to perform well at Sheffield Steel because I want to impress Leeds. And so was very happy to take that extra step to go and travel further and then stay with friends in Sheffield if I needed to help with practice during the week and that kind of thing. And that kind of carried through then into when I trialed for Clapham going into 2016, was a very similar mindset. I'm still living at home, but I'm willing to put that travel in if it means that I'm going to that next step, to that next level.
Right. And then so you do go to Clapham. Actually, hang on. I want to rewind before we talk about Clapham a little bit. As you were getting into Ultimate, you started in Sheffield Hallam. You have a jaunt with Sheffield Steel, the club team there. You mentioned Brodie Smith was somebody who was on the radar then. You by 2014, you've had 2 years of interaction at some level. Who was, I guess, who were the influential players in and around your local, and then maybe at a national level? Who were the guys that you kind of knew about first, and maybe beyond Brodie, a couple from an international? What was hitting your radar back in 2014? Kind of at a municipal, national, and then a global level back then.
Honestly, absolutely no one at all, other than my direct circle of Ultimate players. There wasn't. I guess the scene has changed a lot since then with the growth of Ultimate social media and more content creators being in the sport as well. But at that time, I knew of Brodie, but there's quite a funny story about my interaction with the U23 trials. Was that they had introduced a Justin Ford scale of excellence, which was, we want you to rate yourself on a scale of 1 to 5, but all of their ratings refer to Justin in some way, from 1 being who's Justin Ford to 5 being I'm comfortable taking on Justin Ford in a matchup. Which for a lot of the U23s who were playing, had a lot of experience, that was very relevant. For me, I had no idea who Justin was in 2014 going into these trials. And so my response was, am I automatically a 1 because I don't know who this guy who plays Frisbee is? And by that time, Justin had been on a world's team with GB in Sakai. He'd just played Lecco that year in Italy in that quarterfinal against Revolver. Like, Justin was, by that point, was very much
a name. So I guess it's silver in Sakai as well that year, right? Yep.
silver in Sakai, fifth in Lecco with Clapham. He was
And
very
already a
much
handful
someone
of
still.
UK and European titles by then too.
Exactly, yeah. So if I was going to know anyone in UK Ultimate at that sort of top level, he would be that guy. And I simply didn't. And even kind of going into 2015 with Leeds and playing nationals there, I kind of knew who the top teams were, and I knew that I wanted to eventually be competing at the very top. But I was much more focused on just my inner circle and how I could take steps through that and get as good as I could.
And so, who were the, I guess, either top dogs or captains at Sheffield Steel back then? Who was kind of running the show?
So for me, someone that I really enjoyed marking up against at the time was a gent named Dan Sumner, who was University of Sheffield. So there was automatically a rivalry there. He'd played for Manchester back when they were kind of pushing the tour top four back in the UK. At that time it was mixed tour and then open tour, so they split the season entirely, similar to how Australia does at the moment. And Manchester were one of the teams that were pushing kind of that top four bracket, looking to try and take on Clapham and Chevron in those quarterfinal, semi-final games. And that's how I knew him to be one of the better players in and around my circle. And I remember when we were training together at Sheffield Steel, he was someone who was pushing me to be better by simply us matching up, but also in a very kind of guidance-based way as well. But honestly, yeah, trying to think back about who I saw as maybe that next step, to next challenge to try and take on, I knew barely anyone at all. And I think that comes with kind of playing at the bottom end of the scale at that time, with regards to kind of the teams at UK Ultimate and in UK Ultimate at that time.
Yeah, that and a lack of streaming and content, as you said, way less to kind of consume yourself or surround yourself with for consumption. So you went to Clapham. How did that happen? Was there an open tryout? Did you get a call at this stage? Was your first tryout a resounding success? Did you kind of have to pry your way in? How'd that go?
It was a weird one because it was 2016 with WJUC in London, and that year Clapham and GB had essentially formed one training rota. They were allowing GB players to come and train regularly with Clapham, and they were essentially hosting it as this is Clapham/GB Open that year, I believe is how it was going. And so they didn't hold any application-based tryouts until after WJC had finished. So the applications were in the run up to the tournament and to the end of the tournament. And then I remember talking to some Clapham players at WJC about attending trials and just hoping that it's going to be a good experience for me and getting good matchups and going to learn a lot. Whether or not I make the team, I don't know. And then, yeah, I think it was three or four sessions of trials at that time. The very first day was a competitive shuttles race, and I vomited after that one, so I had to sit out of the next drill for the first half of that because I'd gone way too hard. I was very, very keen to impress. But yeah, I actually recently just had the kind of anniversary of the offer email on the 22nd of July 2016. I got the email. I remember being at work, getting it, and losing my mind. I was absolutely delighted. So yeah, from
who officially sent it?
I think just Clapham Ultimate just sent it, rather than someone in particular. But that year, I think there was a few different captains that year. But obviously Clapham's trial process involves a number of very wise and experienced ultimate players, so there's quite a few bodies involved in helping with selection and whatnot.
So that was 2016, the after Worlds in 2016.
Yeah, so I started the season actually that year with Emo, who were again kind of another step up for me in my performance, playing the start of the 2016 season with them. And I was very honest with my captain and said, I'm going to trial for Clapham. If I make it, these are the dates that essentially the transfer would happen, and he was very appreciative of me letting him know and being honest and telling him ahead of time. And then got the offer in July of 2016, and I think we had one training before regionals at that point. So my first Clapham tournament came very soon after my first Clapham training officially as a player there.
I can only guess that you got used to winning pretty quick in 2016. You definitely would have won a UKU title. Did you guys win Euros in your first year?
We did, yeah. I was very fortunate. I got to play a lot in that tournament because we didn't have that many close games. We won the final against Lefort 15-7 that year. I think that's our biggest win for a long time. But it meant I got to play a lot of points as a rookie, as a D-line rookie, which is great. So won regionals, won nationals that year in a decent game against Chevron, and then was in Frankfurt for Europeans, my second Euros, first with Clapham, and we were very close to losing to Otso from Finland earlier in the tournament, but ended up going 7-0, 8-0, whatever it may be, to win it all.
Up the deeper you went. You mentioned athletics was your sport before. What was your event? Were you a sprinter? Tell us a bit. And were there any other sports or team sports that you were involved in before Ultimate?
Bit of a mixture. So when I first started athletics, it's because I'd been to kind of an after-school club style thing that was going on, and the school that was hosting it was doing long jump and sprints and a mixture of stuff. And I'd never really done any kind of long distance whatsoever. But then they suggested I go to my local club. I turned up to my local club and the entire track was under redevelopment. And so for the next 4 to 5 months of my athletics beginnings was just running cross country nonstop. And it was brutal. I cannot describe how little I enjoy something like that. Considering it's a competitive sport. And I have serious respect for those that are able to lock in and make that their discipline, because it's absolutely brutal. So started with a bit of long distance stuff, eventually got on the track, did a mixture of events, some javelin, some hurdles, and then eventually discovered pole vault, which was my solo event for a number of years, kind of 6 or 7 years. I pole vaulted. And just the complete opposite of cross country, just the most fun you could ever have in any event. I think kind of running up with a 15 foot long carbon fiber or fiberglass pole and flinging yourself over a bar onto a huge mat. I mean, it's just, incredible.
I have never attempted a pole vault, and it's, for sure. That would be awesome. I think
it's so much
respect for
that. It's so much fun.
It looks very fun. It looks difficult, of course, skill involved, but maybe not the attrition required in cross country running. But get yourself together, put it all together for one fling, as you said. But it looks like a lot of fun.
Quite literally. And the focus time is a lot shorter as well. I don't have a huge attention span, so being able to focus for 10 seconds of doing one vault rather than half an hour of doing a long cross-country run is much more my thing, honestly.
Yeah. You were number 88. Have you always worn number 88?
Pretty much. It's always been my intended number with teams. There's been a couple of instances of it being used elsewhere already. But my dad's side of the family are all from Glasgow in Scotland, and I grew up a Glasgow Celtic fan who were formed in 1888. So 88 was always the important year. So when I started Ultimate, they were around. It was around then that they were celebrating their 125th anniversary at that sort of time for 88, and so. Yeah, and it's stuck ever since. There aren't many teams that have an 88 already in place for any particular reason other than they just fancied it. So, I was fortunate to get mine.
Nice. But for me, 88, I think of ice hockey players. Eric Lindros is still the 88 that comes to mind first. But anyhow, so we've talked about a lot of successful selection and campaigning. let's go back to a potential soft spot. World Games selection. I guess that was 2021, 2022. And for you, a deselection. I think
lack
there
of
was
selection. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Unselected, not selected, lack of selection. However we want to paint that. As I think for sure you were certainly. You got the invite to the selections. You were on the radar. I think it's one of the things that popped onto a lot of external onlookers as a potential snub. What happened there? Give us a little tale about I don't know, maybe why you were told you didn't make it, and then I got a few follow up, but why you were told you didn't make that squad in that's 2022 selections would have been 2021 maybe.
Yeah, kind of February, March of 2022. So we had a pre-trial process before Christmas that narrowed down into a full main trial in February up in Scotland. I thought my trial went pretty well. I recognised that this was our first GB trial experience for anyone there since 2018 going into 2019 at AUC because of the lack of worlds in 2020. And I kind of just went out and said, I'm just going to show everything that I can do. I'm going to hook, I'm going to break the mark, I'm going to lay out, I'm going to get blocks. That's pretty much what I did. I thought I trialed really well. It was a weird experience if I was one of the only people, if not the only person, to receive immediate feedback from the selection email. So I was in a pub with my colleagues on a Friday night and received the email with the decision. And it broke down a lot of the feedback there and then, which was unusual because I know a lot of other people had already received their decision emails and didn't have anything of the sort. So I don't know whether that was kind of we recognize that this is going to be quite tough for you. We know how much this means to you and how important it is to you. And so we want to give you something now rather than waiting. There was a couple of bits in there that I will be honest, I pretty much ignored because it felt as though at the time I was very much like, if that's what you think, then that's what you think. That's fine. Maybe a touch of arrogance there to be like, I'm not worried about my catching. If that's something that you thought was an issue at trials, cool. But I'm not going to go out and work on my catching. And there were other parts of it that were like, cool, if that's what you think, that's fine. It feels more of like a stylistic choice rather than a performance ability one. And that's not really something I can argue against, right? Like they're going to make decisions on the team that they want with the types of players that they want. And if I'm not that type of player, then fine. It gave me a lot of motivation to go through into world clubs of that year and just kind of prove them wrong and say I'm determined to show that I'm one of the best matching players on the planet, and next time round whoever is managing won't have any reason to say no.
Nice. Always difficult, of course. Selections are always difficult. You were one of the younger on the rise players, potentially a little bit more solid footing maybe, and of course no slag at the guys that made it. They're all longtime teammates of yours and excellent players as well. But an interesting one. Did you have GB probably underperformed? They were not excellent at World Games. Was there any little bit of you that was kind of lapping it up a bit? They could have had me, or am I going to make? Am I putting words in your mouth here?
No, not at all. I mean, I'd be lying if I said in the kind of post-trial era and the run-up to the tournament that I wasn't still frustrated to not be part of that process, to not even be selected as a training squad player was tough as well. And I wanted my teammates and my friends to have good tournaments. I wanted them to go and perform well. I wanted the team to do well. I guess there was a part of me that was like, I guess if things don't necessarily go to plan, I wonder what would have happened had I gone. But it very much kind of like what ifs, right? Which hard to judge. As soon as the tournament started, I was like, jersey on, watching late night World Game streams till 3 a.m. with my housemate, in full support. So kind of any of that went out the window at that point. And I think that was just a moment of acceptance of there's no point in holding any hard feelings or bitterness right at this point. It's just support for the team and hoping that they perform well.
Nice. It sounds like it was pretty good fuel for you to get into that Clapham year at Worlds in Cincinnati. You've obviously been on the rise since then. You've had some good campaigns. Assuming GB get another bid back, that is on your list to be trialing for World Games. Is that must be a goal for you looking forward? Yeah,
for sure. And the couple of years by then of experience playing on an O-line has taught me an awful lot. So I feel as though I'm going to be even more prepared than last time round. But yes, qualify first, then worry about tryouts second, I guess.
Okay, then that's one of my questions I had. I'll skip a little forward to it, but talking about your evolving role from kind of a known D-liner, a puller, to now doing a lot more featuring on O-lines. I think I've seen it both for GB and Clapham, certainly for Clapham. But yeah, talk a little bit about the, I guess, evolution or transition, if you will, however you might frame that one.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. When people talk about developing in the sport and how to get as good as you can, I actually think that being on a D-line and getting cut from certain tournaments is one of the things that has really helped me progress and develop. I think there is room for taking your development and improvement kind of baby steps at a time and small leaps at a time. For me, it was, I'm going to throw aggressive shots. I'm going to learn on the go. I'm going to go to these tournaments and I'm going to huck and I'm going to take these aggressive break options and I'm going to work on my scubas. And a lot of that led to me being on a D-line for a long time. It meant that I didn't get selected for Clapham's Worlds campaign in 2018. That's a large part of the reason. My D was good and athletic, but it wasn't super safe, I guess it's fair to say. But I think with the wisdom and experience that I've gained over time on how to switch a lot of that off in game scenarios or in important scenarios, I think everything I've done up to that point has put me in a really good position to be able to perform on an O-line. I think my meter on aggression is slightly dialed towards the 10 more than others, but I think that raises the base as well. I think if you are spending a little too much time playing in those kind of safe areas of the scale, then it's much harder to raise that base a lot higher. So yeah, I think that the success, at least that I feel as though I've had on the O-line so far, has come from a lot of that D-line experience over the years. There's certainly learnings from that to be able to go from that aggressive D-line style of offense, for example, of taking those shots because you don't always get those options to do so, and maybe the depth of offensive ability on that line not being as high as not being as large as an O-line, being able to utilize that in D moments isn't necessarily going to translate over to O, and so being able to switch that to a slightly more reserved or conservative style of player has been something to learn and implement while still carrying through a lot of that experience that I've had from D-line experience so far.
A lot of people see moving from D-line to O-line as a bit of a graduation. Is O-line somewhere you hope to or imagine to see yourself kind of from here on out? Do you think it depends on the team? Do you see value in the versatility of being able to maybe play a whole campaign back on a D-line? Talk about that a bit.
It's an interesting one, yeah. A big part of the reason I chose to play GB Mixed in 2023 instead of GB Open was to put myself in positions that I was going to be playing a lot more offense and in positions of responsibility. It's something I'd not really had up to that point. I'd been a D-line stalwart. I'd been brought over onto certain O points with Clapham, but I was never going to be one of those starting 7. I simply didn't have the experience there. For me, it was, I don't know the phrase exactly that you used there, but almost a level of growth or promotion, I suppose, is sometimes the word that can be used as well. I think because of the level of responsibility that comes along with it, I think there is an ability to be on a D line and play with a little bit of reckless abandon that can actually be very beneficial. It can raise the intensity, it can raise the pressure, but in those moments where you need to be able to get a block, great, but then also just conserve the disc and put in your break opportunities, there are going to be a lot of O-line players or O-line experienced players who are much better at doing that. Justin was someone who I looked to when I made that decision based on his experience and history so far. He was on an O-line in Sakai in 2012, only kind of 6 to 8 years after he'd started playing, and he was on to that point, his most important O-line yet, right? And I think the experience of me doing so has also confirmed my suspicions, at least, that there is so much more to learn from being on an O-line. I do think there is a nuance to it as well, in that some players are made for an O-line because that is where their strengths lie. But I think I'd like to think that kind of the growth that I've experienced to get to that point has been, if I were to do it again, I don't think I'd do it any other way. Just like those years of playing a D-line to get that experience and growth to then be able to implement all of that onto an O-line and then continue to learn, I think is the way. Would I end up being on a D-line again for an entire campaign? I could see so. Yeah, I think so. I think D is moving, at least for us, to a still a very athletic and very aggressive style of D, but there's a lot of smarts there, and there is also a number of O-lines all around the world playing with a 7 who are all elite defenders as well. And so being a D-line that could just jack it isn't going to hack it anymore, and being a player on a D-line that can just play with a level of reckless abandon also isn't going to stick it at the top level anymore. And so maybe room on a future D-line for a late 30s Connor to come on and play some handler offense. Who knows?
Yeah, you never know. I mean, defense wins games still. I say, as somebody who's selected many lines in my day, I still do I generally select O-line first, and there's something about that says these are the guys you trust the most. But having, it really depends on the depth of your roster. Having like one or two of your best players who can still hack it on defense, if it's good for the team. Sometimes, I think I recently got to meet Angela Zhu, the Brute Squad, and she played Super Team, of course, and she's one who could be a top 2-3 player on any O-line, but how good she is playing defense, she is somebody who is very selfless, whatever's better for the team, and I think having her play a bit more defense a bit more frequently is very good for the team still. So it's a tough one, because I use the word graduation. You said promotion. Once you do kind of get there, you got to fill yourself up with all that experience. But then does that mean you just get to sit tight, or now is your versatility give you a little bit of option to move back and forth, right?
And it's about value added, right? Like you say, Angela could be one of those players on an O-line, but if there are 8 players on that O-line who are already doing the job that is needed, and she's not adding as much value on there as she could be on the D-line, then why not, right? I'd like to think I'm someone who adds value both ways, and if Clapham or GB need me to go and play predominantly D for a game, then excited to go and do so, and to add that value there.
Amen. One of my questions was why you decided to play mixed. You answered that for me already. The state of GB Ultimate, the longtime juggernaut in European. I mean, last Euros, no gold medal, probably the first time ever, I think, because the Open have always won and the mix had always won. Is there any grounds to be worried about the state of GB Ultimate right now? Is that talk a little bit about that. Is was it a little blip on the radar, or is the rest of the continent catching up, or is maybe GB Ultimate not quite as much of a powerhouse as they have been over the years?
I think that's probably fair to say. I think there's a few bits to it. I think that the ceiling of a lot of these nations is growing. I think the depth of a lot of other nations is growing and catching up with GB. I think it's very similar to how people often talk about Clapham as well. Clapham had that stint from 2012 through 2018 of people talking about their dominance and winning all of those European victories, and then lost a few games kind of going into 2018, 2019, and lost that Euros final to La Fota. And people talk about, is the reign, is the dominance over? Or maybe they're not quite as good. Maybe the people that they're bringing in or the development that they're doing isn't good enough. And Clapham won every final from 2012 to 2018, but Clapham have been in every single final of Europeans since 2012 as well. And yes, we've been on the wrong side of a couple of those finals now in 2019 and 2022. But the consistency to do that year on year, I don't think can be understated. And I think GB is probably in a similar state to that, where the mixed team had never lost going into 2023, but the French mixed team put out one of the best performances that any mixed team has provided in any European Championship to date. They are looking to be world contenders, right? And GB ended up in a weird position where we ended up playing them in semis and ended up playing Ireland instead of Italy in the bronze game and things like that. An Italy team that we'd beat comfortably twice up to that point. So I think the winning, the gold, is often seen as that medal of dominance, that kind of that proof in the pudding type thing. But let's not forget, like, GB Open went to Belgium Open and beat all of those teams there, and then went to London Invite and maybe didn't perform as well as they'd have liked, but still ended up in the final of Europeans, and Belgium had a better game than GB did in that final. But the dominance and the performance, I think, needs to be seen on a slightly wider lens than simply whether they are winning, right? I expect if we were to look back at GB, Clapham, whatever results over the years, there will have been some universe point semis or some universe point finals in there as well that GB Mixed or GB Open or Clapham, whoever, or GB Women came out the better side of. And all it takes is one of those going the other way, and suddenly these conversations are maybe being had 6 years earlier. Exactly. And yet, year by year, all of those squads that I mentioned are still pushing that top four and beyond in the European scene. So I think if you look at it in a wider lens, I think there is still a level of performance there that is above the majority of the rest. But yeah, can't be understated that these other nations are improving and are pushing us and each other and other teams to have to constantly improve, which is only good.
Exactly. At a global level, it's good for even GB, even sitting at the top. Nobody wants to get too comfortable up there, or else it's not worth playing. So Clapham, 20 years in a row, we've talked about it. You guys lost in that. Another story. I feel like I'm poking you here with a couple, but some big stories in the last year, and some of them had that team potential negativity about them, with Clapham going down to Chevron in a final. You guys have now won it back. Going into that game, going in every year, I guess is where my question's going to be. Like, I guess it's a similar question I've asked some Americans before. Like, but what is this level of, like, feeling the pressure versus being like, so comfortable that it's, we do this every year. It's the way it's going to be. Like, how does that go in the heads? And then I guess, like, what happened that was different in the final a year ago?
Yeah. I think touching back to what you said about being at the top without that competition, Clapham had not had a close Nationals final probably since 2018, maybe, I think was the last time I seem to remember it being pretty close. And obviously COVID came around, making it feel even longer. But there was certainly a level of maybe complacency, at least from myself, of UK Nationals being an important stepping stone in our season, but on the route to Europeans, especially after we'd lost the European final in 2022. The goal to me was, cool, how are we getting back and ready to win Euros in 2023 and win back that crown? And whilst Nationals comes into that equation, it certainly wasn't such an important part of the season as this year was, after having lost. So there's certainly part of it there. It really gave us the wake up call that I think was necessary in order to improve to win Europeans last year. Chevy played a very good final last year, and we didn't, and they took the crown. And I actually think they played even better this year. And we had to play one of our best O-line performances of the last few years in order to take it away. We got broken twice, number of turns in there, but got the disc back every time. And one of those breaks was Briggs decided to throw it straight to one of the defenders on our goal line. But that's what it took to win 15-13. So I genuinely think, had they played that way last year, they would have thumped us again. And had we played like we did last year in this year's final, we probably would have lost again. So I think there's a level of growth there that we needed to implement if we were going to win that 2023 Euros title and regain the Nationals title this year, because Chevy prepared well, they performed well on the day. And it's great. They took Moon to Universe earlier in the year at Elite Invite. Like, they are showing to be a top team in Europe again, which is only good for us. I think the pressure point, I guess comes from a little bit from that streak. Statistically, it's just more and more likely to be broken every year, and so where does the pressure come in on being part of the team that lost it? And that is, now I'm part of that as well. So I do like that there is less pressure now, but I think the pressure this year was the pressure to show that it was a 1 in 23 year hiccup. This is not going to be a regular thing. We are going to show that actually that was just one of the statistical possibilities, is that they managed to take it from us one of these times. Until they do it 4 or 5 times in a row, then we intend to continue being the team to starting the new streaks. So yeah, get less pressure now, but a different type of pressure.
Yeah, at least you get to 20 first before it happened. It would have sucked if that was going for 20. Yeah. But I feel like so did this year, talking about pressure, feeling it, as far as like pre-game, pre-tournament communications and chats go, is this, was this like an elephant in the room? Like, hey, we gotta win this. Like, maybe not an elephant in the room, maybe front page news, where it's like, hey, we screwed this up last year. How was this addressed?
Yeah, for sure. And the different scheduling for UK Nationals this year because of Worlds, I think actually lent to that a little bit, because it was it's a proper first peak of the season. Usually UK Nationals happens after World Clubs or after Europeans or after Worlds or whatever it may be. And so having it before really gave us a good schedule plan for, this is our first peak of the year. It is for Nationals, and we are going to go and take that title back because we deserve it and it belongs to us. Is a big part of the mentality is that it's been ours for a long time, and it's been ours for a long time for a reason. Absolutely not to say that Chevy didn't deserve it last year, because they did. But we want to go and show why our name is on that trophy as many times as it is. And yeah, the season being structured in the way that it is helped with that a lot, to just be able to make that our focus. Doesn't matter about anything else that's happening in between. Once we win nationals, then we start to look at the schedule again and go, okay, now we're prepping for Euros in a couple of months' time. Worlds is in between now and then, and in there as well. So yeah, certainly didn't beat around the bush on that point. It was very clear to everyone at practice that we are, at this point of the season, we are training to peak to go and win that title back.
Nice. Okay, so every now and again on this show, I ask people their top 7, their starting 7 of all time. I'm going to do it a little differently with you.
Okay.
So I am going to ask you best male matching player and I'm just going to give you the name of a country, and I want you to tell me who jumps out as the best male matching player in each of these countries. We're going 10 deep, 10 countries deep here.
So the thing is, Steph, this isn't just my own personal opinion anymore. I've got a business associated with this now that's going and that's on the line here. So yeah. I need to be careful.
A little bit careful, but it's good. I mean, of course, okay. you can choose to concede if you don't want.
Or maybe defer. Maybe.
Defer. Sorry, not my bad. My bad. Spitting out the wrong words. I tend to do that. But
no, I won't shy away.
Let's see how we go here. So we'll start, and most of them European, but I think I've got 3 intercontinentals here. And we'll start with Down Under, best Australian male matching player.
Ooh. Rob Andrews was very annoying to play against at work. He was kind of someone who you know exactly what he wants to do, which is score deep. So you're going to play defense in a way to make it hard. And even when it's hard, he still manages to do it anyway. Yeah. So I think I maybe had a block, or maybe had one that I was really close to, that I was kind of like, you know what, that's fine. I was very close to that. If they keep slinging it, fine. But then you watch back his World Games performances and you go, like, it just adds a lot of value to any team that is on, I expect.
Yeah. You know what I'm doing here? This is just like you're helping me do my scouting for next year's super team. But Rob Andrews, I think most of Australia would agree with you. There's a few that would give him a little bit. McGuckin, Cupcake, of course, but Andrews, very solid answer. Canada, who's the best Canadian player?
I think the best Canadian player that I have matched up against, which I think is probably our best point of scale, is, I'm going to say Mike McKenzie. Mike
fella.
is, go. He has been very good for a while. It's not new to the scene, and he has an ability that I've not seen too often on being able to surprise me with how close he is on D in certain positions. Kind of like I've got that internal kind of proprioception around me of when I get into a certain position and I feel where the defender was at that time. I'm like, cool, I know I'm free. I know I'm getting this disc. And there's been multiple occasions being marked by Mike where I've had that, I'm completely free, I'm about to catch this. And he's come flying through and been very, very, very close and got blocks on a number of occasions. And then when he gets the disc, he's relentless, just nonstop, doesn't try anything too fancy. I think he's the sort of player that you would absolutely just be able to add in, plug and play into any squad.
Nice, like the choice. Okay, moving on to European soil, not the biggest Frisbee nation, but up northern Baltics, Latvia. Who's the best Latvian player for me? Ooh. Yeah, I don't know. I'll say no more.
Best male matching.
Male matching, yes, all.
Yeah, I think Arvids is probably the number one choice at the moment, at least. Again, just all rounder, can be expansive when with his throws if he needs to be. Obviously, a big body to pressure on defense. That work performance that he had against Sockeye and against Rhino Slam, they were awesome. They were so good. And yeah, was a big part of that Latvian mixed team at EUC as well last year.
Arvid Karklinch, of course, formerly known as Orlovskis. A lesser known grass ultimate nation, but they did perform well at EUC. More frequently on the beach, but who's the best Spanish ultimate male matching player?
Goodness. I'm testing my knowledge here. So most recently playing against Spain at World Beach last year, I think that Alvaro Otamendi of Deep Space was a big reason that they got to where they got to. I will admit I know a lot more about Alvaro and I've seen a lot more of his game than I do of the others. So that's probably part of the reason that he's in there as well. But he was awesome at World Beach, watching him play against other teams and him playing against us. Just, again, relentless, just non-stop shuttles, just always working to get free, clearing the space if he needs to clear the space. Not someone, at least for the Spanish national team, that was taking aggressive or difficult options, just doing the right things always. So he was a big part of that squad at World Beach.
Yeah, nice. I like the choice. There's a lot of good options there. Across the pond, they got you in the clubs, one of the ones you spoke about, but best Irish player by your estimation?
Best male matching Irish player. I think the third year is one name in there. I think he is his offense is world class. And I think that's shown by the fact that any team that he has played with or for so far, he's been a huge part of, whether that's Ranelagh, Ireland, or now Wall City, being in Berlin. However, I think that Sam Murphy is probably a greater all-rounder, and I'm saying all of this with a pinch of salt, but I think Sam has the ability to plug and play better, which I think in terms of who I see as like the best all-round player, I think it probably fits that a bit better, and has a bit more experience playing with double wide in the US club scene, which adds to it as well. And he had that incredible Europeans again in 2022 and was one of the best offensive players in Europe that year. A nightmare to stop and also very, very solid on disc as well. So yeah, we'll go with Smurf.
Nice. We're halfway there. 5 down, 5 to go. Best French male matching player.
Ooh.
Oh oui, ooh la la.
Ooh la la. Ouais. I think for the fact that he could seemingly do it all with relative ease, Gaël Ancelon is probably the name that I'd go with. He was very, very difficult to even slow down at Europeans for France mix, let alone actually stop. But has also played open at a very high level as well. Yeah, I think that's probably up there. It pains me not to say NASA because I know that Nas has been playing at a top level for a long time. And I know Elliot is showing a lot of good stuff at the moment as well. But I think Gaël is, again, one of those players that you can just insert into any team and he's going to add massive value.
Class player. Your newest rivals, I guess, on club and national, but the Belgians. Who's the greatest or the best Belgian male matching player? And it's tough. I haven't said best all time. You kind of classified that a little bit with talking about Gaël and Nas. Like, is Nas the best right now? No, but he's still playing. And his version, like, let's just say who, the best. Maybe it was their prime, as long as they're still playing, let's say.
And is Nas is French, right? Or is he Swiss?
Yeah, no, he's French. He's French.
I don't know the flexibility of Wifter for all these days.
He could probably play both. He's coaching Swiss Open right now in Birmingham.
So 2 names come to mind straight away. Okay, so this I'm gonna go with 3. Aaron van der Vega is the best out-and-out Belgian handler there is at the moment. I think he's awesome. I think he plays an aggressive, fearless style of offense, which is very cool. I think Toby de Croo is probably the best out-and-out cutter at the moment, and his disc skills are just constantly improving. But he's a world-class athlete on the ultimate scene. He's pretty much unstoppable. I think that Dan is probably the better all-rounder of the three, and I think he can take control of a game a lot more than either of the other two can. I think he could do so without needing the other, which would put him in there. I think if I was to add anyone to my team, I'd probably add Toby. I think the level of value that he can bring, simply because he is better at what he does than the vast majority of ultimate players, full stop, let alone in Belgium. I think I would probably go with Toby.
Yeah, I mean, becoming the best receiver in the world right now is maybe okay. In Europe, it's almost easy to say that now. Of course, there's always a debate. But for my money, my value, he's the best at doing one thing, and that one thing is catching goals, and that's pretty damn important part of the game.
He's someone you have to have a very particular plan for. Which is very much the case for the other two. But I think the difference is that if you don't plan for Toby effectively, he will be worth 4 or 5 goals.
He'll expose you more, I think, is how that goes. Let's go down to the land of the boot, the Italians. Who do you got for best male matching Italian player right now?
Good question.
It is. There's always a few.
That's a tough one. Yeah. I think that Giovanni Choppo Santucci is definitely a name that's still up there, still playing really well. I think that Rossi is having an incredible season so far. Bazzazi has been awesome. I think ceiling-wise, David looks like he could be a world-class player if he sticks at it and develops in the way that he's been going. I think that Rossi is probably the kind of Italian comparison to Toby at the moment. Super fast, very good in the air, dominant receiver, very easy to plug and play in that regard. Choppo is someone with a lot more experience, someone that I would have in maybe as a D-line player to help run that offense after the turn. I think I'll go with Rossi at the moment. I think he's again someone that you have to plan for, and kind of goes under the radar, I guess. I don't know. He never seems to be someone that is talked about in that same sort of way. But then if you think like that going into a game, you'll get punished for it.
Yeah, I like the choice. I think for me, like, I love Choppo, but for me, it's Barzazzi and Rossi right now. Again, Choppo's had his glory days, maybe a little bit further behind him. But for me, that Rossi Barzazzi is a bit of a flip of a coin, and again, it depends on what angle you're looking at it. Let's talk about the Yanks, which could, in many people, may be the best player in the world when you spell it out, but because they're the best team. But best U.S. player, male matching player by your estimation?
I think at the moment, I would say, based on the matchups that I had last year, the person who I had the most difficulty with would probably be Christian Boxley. I think he is probably the best cutter in the world at the moment, at the very least. All World had him as their player of the year in the male matching open division slot, which I think is probably fair. I think he has the explosive athleticism of de Croo with a level of experience and wisdom and, I guess, wiliness about him that works really well. I do wonder how that perception would change seeing him in a different outfit, because at the moment it's kind of truck stop where he has the ultimate trust and integration with his handler set, and now that's translated pretty much directly over to their world's US team as well. So I'd be really interested to see him insert in a different capacity and to see how he would do there. But yeah, in terms of who am I least looking forward to trying to stop and to trying to take a particular thing away, and then if we do manage to generate a turn, who am I least looking forward to marking me on the turn? I think Christian's definitely up there. I think Joe is showing himself Joe White is showing himself still consistently as one of the best offensive players in the US. He just plays with a level of freedom and fluidity and experience that a lot of people struggle to stop. But again, it'd be very, really interesting to see him in a US style outfit. Obviously played very well with the super team at Windmill. But yeah, would love to see him on a Team USA with 7 or 8 other players of his caliber, and how he then fits into that. But yeah, I think Boxley is probably the shout at the moment.
Yeah, great. Love the choice again. A very sound choice. Not a lot of people agree with you based on what the punters are saying in the media columns. And best male matching player in the UK,
other than me. Who do I think is the best male matching player in the UK at the moment? If we were talking someone who I would always have on my team, no matter what.
I almost want to guess this, but I'm not. Can I guess first? You've got that name in your head?
It's locked in.
Okay, I think you're going to say Mum, but go on.
Interesting. No, actually, I'm going to say Andrew Hillman.
Okay, Hillman, nice.
I think Hillman is someone who I have on my 7, whether we are starting on offense or starting on defense in universe in any game in the world. A lot of that is experience us playing together and knowing our nuances and quirks, which really, really helps. But also similar to Abrams, his understanding and analysis of the game has pushed him to a level that I don't think many people have ever reached. In his physical attributes are great. He's never going to be a Toby, and he's never going to be a Rowledge or a Bazazi, but his understanding of the game takes away a lot of those potential physical disadvantages compared to those players. His ability to break the mark, his ability to use his momentum to get free in reset spaces. Just absolutely someone who I would have in any situation, in any game.
But I like that it started with besides me. Awesome stuff. I think you very eloquently expressed your reasons why you're not going to piss anybody off with these answers. Advanced Ultimate, nothing to worry about. How did Advanced Ultimate come to be? Why did you decide? How did you decide to make coaching and I guess online content creating style coaching? How did you decide to make this your thing?
Well, it was a discussion with my girlfriend at the time. Actually, I have always been very much of the opinion that Clapham does a great job in developing the players that it brings in and giving them the opportunities. That we've done a lot of outreach in the past. We have had a guest coaching program. We have held open sessions. A lot of that was pre-COVID, and myself and she were discussing this, and she said, yeah, but what have you actually done in the past 3 years? And I kind of said, yeah, it's a fair point. And Clapham continues to do great things in that capacity. We obviously have a lot of focus ourselves on our own performance in developing the players that we bring on. And so I wanted to be able to provide a level of insight and coaching to players around the world that you may experience if you were to make Clapham. I think, especially in the UK, there are not so many coaching experiences that you can go and experience. Sorry, coaching environments that you can go and experience that aren't just making one of the best teams. If you don't make one of the best teams, you're not getting a lot of the best coaching or a lot of the best players being part of that. We're not deep enough as a community, as a sport yet, to have world-class coaches available by the dozen. And so I wanted to try and be able to do my bit there, I guess. The content side of things is just always something I've been quite interested in. I consume content like nobody's business, whether that's ultimate or other areas of pop culture, or just different rabbit holes in YouTube, and have kind of dabbled here and there over the years in different things. And it just gave me the opportunity to unleash my creative side of things a little bit. I took a lot of inspiration kind of from Red Bull, in that they are an energy drink brand, but their brand is so much more than that. It is extreme sports, and it is world record attempts, and it's crazy stories, and it's crazy events, and it's, you could watch a Red Bull video or experience, take all of the Red Bull labels off, and it looks exactly the same. So why not do those, but just put our label all over it and create a visual spectacle? And so I wanted to create a brand that people could really associate with and really find interesting, and ask interesting questions, or log on and learn from the content. And hopefully in doing so, I create an identity that is around just the growth and learnings of the sport. And if people then want to have me along to one of their training sessions to do it in a more formal coaching session setting, then amazing. If they just want to experience it through the content that I put online, then that's absolutely fine as well.
Nice, and it's going well. It seems you've got over 6,000 followers now. I think I saw over 1 million views or impressions. So things are moving along, and you have had a chance to be dragged onto a pitch kind of because of it or for it. You went to Diskin camp. I've been to two Diskin camps prior. I know they're a wonderful time personally, but talk about your experience a bit, going from, whatever, developing players we've spoken about. You've got a coaching platform now, and you get to go to something like Diskin. What's it all about?
Yeah. And that's one of the experiences that I don't think would have come around, or not at least in the same capacity, had I not had the platform, which is awesome. And it was incredible. I'll be completely honest and say a few weeks out from that, I was feeling pretty run down from tournaments, and I think it was like regionals, windmill, weekend off GB training, weekend off nationals, something like that, and I was going to be flying to Lyon the Monday morning after this national final on Sunday afternoon. So it was a pretty ram-packed few weeks, and I was ready kind of halfway through that to be like, if they've got 16 coaches going and I'm going to be number 17, and there are a lot of amazing people being there, then I'm happy to call it and to give myself a bit more of a rest week. But spoke to Moby, and he was kind of like, we've had a few coaches drop out already. A lot of people are really excited to see you there. Like yourself, Rowan, Valeria are the 3 people that would really like to be there, that a lot of people are really excited and interested in seeing, which obviously feels great to be included with those names. And for my platform to be helping kind of promote that is amazing. But now having done it, absolutely incredible experience. I'm 100% locked into to go again next year if I can. I think one of the things I love about the sport is people's desires to continue to learn and develop within it. We're still a fairly new sport when it comes to performing at a quote unquote elite level, and there's so much more to explore and learn within that. And I think people that are asking those questions, and those people that are wanting to do that by going to these camps or reaching out on social medias to different players, or just consuming as much ultimate as possible, are the future of the sport. And I think every single one of the players at Diskin has a level of that, or else they wouldn't be there. They've paid money to go and stay at a camp for 6 days to experience the insights and wisdom of some of the top ultimate players in the world, which I had that experience and known about it more at that time. I don't even know if I would have done that. So I couldn't recommend it more. If you are someone who's like in that U24 and younger category, or 25 and under category, and you'd be interested in doing it next year, you will absolutely come away from that week having learned a number of things and also made a ton of new friends and had a really just fun time. There's a level of balance there that was unmatched. I think felt very windmill-esque, I think.
Yeah, you'll be thanking yourself for it for a long time to come. This year, of course, it finished with a heck of a game too. I think this is the first year there was anything like that, where the French national team came to play a coaches and best campers or select campers team. You guys took him to Universe Point. I mean, I saw some highlights from that game. Jesus. It looked like a heck of a game. Looked like a hell of a finale to a camp like that.
It's rubbing salt in the wound that unfortunately I had to leave on Friday afternoon to get back for my GB training camp.
You could have been the difference, Con. You could have been the difference.
I could have been. I think I'd like to think
I didn't realize
for a point or two here.
I didn't realize you weren't there. Sorry, but not trying to rub salt in the wounds. But good to get to the bottom of everything.
It was a good. We had a good training camp weekend instead. But yeah, talking to Moby, he kind of said they usually have to pay for a full weekend of a venue to train, so why not just use the venue that we've got booked already, and we can give them a good game to start the weekend as well.
I'm expecting big things from the French mixed team going to Australia. Speaking of Australia, that is next on your list. I guess for sure next on your list as far as as far as majors coming up. We'll kind of take it away on this one. We've had a good chat, but excitement levels, preparation levels, how you and Team GB Open feeling going to Australia, going to the Gold Coast?
I am very excited. Having not done a Worlds yet because of COVID cancelling 2020 in the Netherlands, I think it's just added an extra level of excitement to my psyche. I think that we as GB Open are in a really good position to push top four and to try and push for that final. And so that adds an extra level of excitement, but also pressure to it as well. But trainings are going well. Team is bonding really well. I am very excited for Belgium invite. If the results of that have already come out by the time we see this, then it'll be, I'm sure it will have been a great time. But yeah, I'm very, very excited. I think it's weird to think that we haven't had this in 8 years since London.
Since London, it
seems wild.
It's mental.
And
have you been to Australia before?
Never. No, I have never been to Asia before. So we're stopping off. My flight stops off in Taipei with a quick 7-hour layover. So first experience in Asia, and then first time in Oz. I was about 3 months too old for the Perth U23 cycle, so didn't get to experience that. So yeah, first time over there. Very excited. The weather's surely going to be blistering.
Banging. I lived in the Gold Coast for a decade. I love it there. I'm gonna go back, so I'll be watching you there. Hopefully, get to commentate on some GB games, but very much looking forward to it. Thank you very much for your time. It's always good to have a yarn. It's nice when you look up at the clock and it's been more than an hour. That means it's a nice, easy chat. But thank you very much, Conor McHale, for joining us. Hope you had a good time, and we wish you the best of luck moving forward.
Thanks, Stef. Thanks so much for having me.
Great, as always, to have these guests in. Good to get those insights from Conor McHale, a player on the rise in London, Clapham. And we are back now with Noah Brinkworth, and we're going to talk a little bit more about what's happening. There's lots happening. We'll start with the U.S. Open. Noah, just happened by the time we're recording this yesterday. So, yeah, about a week ago by the time you're watching this. Let's start in the Open division.
Yeah, I mean, it links things together. Conor played a bit of Machine last year, and Machine was one of those teams out in the US Open who had a pretty good tournament, but not as good a tournament as Truck Stop, who are maybe the stories, the heroes, they are the team that came out of the Open division and looked really, really good. No breaks in the final against their O-line. No breaks in the bracket, in the quarters or semis against their O-line, I heard. Which is
I mean, you start talking about Machine there, and that Machine got knocked out by Truck in the quarters. The Truck took a loss early, and Machine were actually the higher seed going in to that quarter, but a couple early breaks, some careless throws, a Joe White throw looking for Dan Demarais, one of the Europeans playing there, was the first, I believe, turnover, and Truck punished them. And then, I mean, offensively speaking, they were just phenomenal. You talk about the French connection on Truck Stop. Jacques Nissen, okay, he's very, very naturalized as an American now. Is a French-born player. Played for Chalk back in the days, but played for USA under-24s. He was an incredible distributor throughout the tournament. He had a great connection with Elliot Bonnet, the Frenchman who's new over to the U.S. side this year. I think Elliot showed up on everybody's radar at the beach in Huntington last year when France won gold, the World Championships. This year, he's at DC doing it with the Breeze. They're having a very strong season in the UFA, and in this game as well, he was. I mean, in this week, Elliot Bonnet was fantastic. He were 13 goals over the course of the tournament. Didn't hit he did 5 assists as well. I mean, he's right up there in the upper echelon of the whole tournament. But yeah, Truck was awesome. Very deserved champions. Best player in the world in many players, in many people's opinions, Rowan McDonald leaves Truck Stop, the championship team. You think, ooh, what kind of impact will that have? Apparently not much. I don't think that's fair to say against Rowan. But you see a team like that lose Rowan McDonald, one of the best players, and still hitting stride, top of the tournament. Very impressive.
And yeah, you totally stole what I was going to say, Steph. But in that pre-quarter, the Truck Stop Dig pre-quarter, 15-8, not close. And I was a little worried about Truck Stop with no Rowan, but they looked fantastic. I'll echo what you said about Elliot Bonnet. I think he's the only player I've seen go from Europe to America and look more versatile than I knew him to be. In UFA highlights and club highlights, I'm like, damn, this guy isn't just an amazing offensive receiver. He's just an amazing offensive player, and he's not too shabby at defense too. So yeah, Truck Stop looking like a really, really strong team.
We mentioned Dan Demarais over there on Machine. You talk about the other European players in the tournament, and Walt Janssen, of course, back on Machine as well. He had some pretty crazy highlights, but didn't underrated quite hit as high. You look at the goals in the division, and of the top 3, 2 are non-Americans. You got Sam McGuckin, the Australian. We'll talk about the Dingoes. They were there because we got a couple WC teams. And Dan Demarais, third best goal scorer, 16 goals. The only one in between them is my boy Joe White. But and then on the assist side, it is a whole bunch of the Americans, really. The only one who breaks it up is old man Gak, the 47-year-old, was the 4th best assist getter with 14 in the tournament. But yeah, WC hype as well from US Open. You had Team Canada and the Dingoes, Team Australia in the tournament. You saw that game they played against each other. What were your thoughts?
Yeah, I thought that both offenses looked pretty clean. That game they pretty much traded all the way till half. Canada put out a little power line on D going into 7-7 Galaxy and get the break and get that little bit of advantage on the outside of half. I thought best player on the field looked like Miliko Samar to me. I think every time he was on offense, he was, really, really difficult to stop. Really great at finishing points and scoring. And then they crossed him over to D, gave him the pull, he put it at the back of the end zone. And one time I think they got a Callahan off that, right?
To win the game. They ended the game on a Callahan.
Yeah, I was questioning myself because on the website it says 15-12, but I think it was only 14-12 or whatever happened. Yeah, Miliko Samar runs, makes a great pull, and Devon Bringland Powell, I'm really sorry for destroying that name, just runs straight through, like one hand snatches the disc from the centering pass, and TC have been on this massive upward trajectory for the year. But equally, Dingoes go there without Cupcake, and they
without Peter Blakely, Tex as well.
Yeah, I thought they kind of looked pretty good. I thought that Alex Gann looked really good. Gag looked really good, way better than I thought he was going to look. And I think that both his throwing and his receiving kind of adds this quick, less than 5 pass aspect to the Dingoes game. I think that, he's really great at giving them a few short offensive points. Gann, for me, is the best player on the field when they have to go 5+ passes deep into a point. But to come to the US Open, and get to the quarters, play a close game against TC, I think that when they, when TC come over to Australia and then Australia at full strength, then I would put that game right at a toss-up. The only thing I worry about for the Dingoes is they looked so amazing on the deep ball, right, on throwing the deep shot, receiving it, and actually defending it, that I think that maybe a calmer Runaway Bay Gold Coast might suit them a bit more. But Steph, that venue is really, really windy.
Yeah, she's blowy. But I mean, if anybody knows it, as far as the team goes, they've had a training camp there already. They'll be back there before Worlds. They do love the deep game, the Aussies, for sure. But I think they are adaptable as well. But they will definitely know that venue better than anyone. That is for sure. I really do think that they, listening to the commentary, they said Coach Yui said he wanted to embrace the suck there. They were ready to learn. They did not shorten lines. They did not try and make major adjustments to win the games. They were there just to get the hit out. I think they're going to look very different and more polished. You add, potentially their best player, certainly one of the strongest voices in Cupcake. You put Tullett back on that team. He is the center of the offense. Everybody knows he's going to be quarterbacking over there. He works very well with Gann, with Guck, with Andrews. It's, you put Tex, one of the other senior members, Peter Blakely, back in. I would say the Dingoes, if they match up against Canada again, I'm taking Dingoes in Australia. That's, I think, another great game, neck and neck, and that could be for a medal. Who knows? By the time they get over to the Gold Coast, Belgium and GB might have something to say about that. Who knows? But yeah, I think I would give them the favor on home turf after seeing that in Denver.
One thing I would love to see for them to really, for me to back them in the same way you are, Steph, is I would love a bit more Rob Andrews. I thought that I didn't see loads of him in that game, and if you look at the stats, he's 3 goals, 2 assists. I don't know if they've got him playing D-line. I don't know if he picked up a knock, but he was the best deep receiver in the world games, and it's only 2 years after that, so I expect him to be a massive part.
Yeah, but I will say this again, Rob Andrews is a great receiver always, but he's a great receiver when Tom Tullett is at the helm and is his favorite target. I mean, Tom Tullett throws to Rob Andrews and Sam McGuckin regularly in the club season for Ellipsis. has played nationally with them regularly. And that's not to say the handling unit there doesn't use Rob Andrews as well, but I don't think anybody uses Rob Andrews as well as Tullett does. So I think that will, getting Tullett back will see a resurgence of Rob Andrews as well.
Yeah. Oh my God. Imagine you have to find 3 guys to mark Gak, and Rob Andrews, and you're playing on a line. That seems impossible. But we should move on, Steph. Let's move on to
let's get into the women's division.
Women's division.
Fury takes it. They're pretty happy, I'm sure, about that, to be back in the championship bracket. The semifinals, their game against Brute Squad, they definitely wanted that one. Brute knocked them out last year. They beat them up good. The interview at the end, Scazzieri, I don't know if you saw that, but Irena Scazzieri, the Italian, playing for Fury. It's her second year there. She was very entertaining in the interview. I was smiling throughout it, but Evan Lepler gave her.
I didn't see the interview.
Just a good range of questions, and she kind of just kept smiling and giggling, and her teammates were walking down in the background giving the pinched fingers, and she talked a little bit about Italy coming up at World Games or at World Championships and what to expect, and we will be good. And she's very cute in her English delivery. I don't that's not fair to say. But just from the interview point of view, she was very funny.
She's also a killer, and I thought that.
Oh yes, I mean speed kills. Scazzieri is a speedster. She was on the goal sheet all over the place. Now I got to go check it out exactly what her stat lines were. But I didn't watch every game, but I saw her score. I don't know, 4 or 5 goals at least, just casually watching a game here, a game there. She was, very good, tough to stop. In the final, they got Scandal 15-11. On the other side of that bracket, or the other side of the semi, it was Molly Brown, who just couldn't keep pace with Scandal in the semi. I think I told you at the start of this, I kind of watch the teams that I know the players on. So Brute Squad, Fury, Flor Coulart was there playing. I think that was her first taste of U.S. Club Ultimate as well. And then I watch Molly because, the Cardenas sisters, of course, they keep they keep me watching. And that game was good 4-4, 6-6, I think it went to. And then Scandal pulled away, and Molly Brown just could not keep pace with them. It went, big ups to Fury. I'm just looking at the score sheets here. Manuela Cartagena at the top with 22 assists. Goodness. Goals. Wow. Junks, Seaver, Weaver, DeJesus, all with 12 and better.
I thought that I think it's a massive weekend for Fury, because a lot of people were kind of selling Fury stock after the roster announcements. A lot of other rosters got in big European players, and Fury have Scazzieri, and but maybe they didn't look loads better than they did in 2023, whereas all the other rosters seem to. So a lot of people were not coming with much hype for Fury, but they looked really, really good, Steph. I always think that I'm impressed with Shayla Harris. I think Anna Thompson's like top 10 players in the world. Maggie Rudin looked really fit and on form and was a great thrower, and Finney didn't, in the games I watched, playing her best ultimate without letting many turns get into her game, which is a criticism I would have of Finney sometimes. I also thought that Scazzieri played the best she's played for Fury.
Scazzieri, leading goal scorer for Fury, 10 goals over the course of the weekend.
I honestly thought that she didn't really find her role and didn't play the best for Fury last year, and I was like, this is a little disappointing, because I know how fantastic she's been in Europe. In that game, in the semi-final game, she was outstanding. it when the disc got into the red zone area, it was a Scazzieri to finish it off. Really great deep cutter. Yeah, I think that she's awesome, and that Italy mixed team is going to be great at WUC. Yeah, I mean, big win for
and I
Fury,
can't
right?
say I did see much of Cree Howard. But the fact that she's still on this roster, she played. I remember in Australia, she was playing over there in the open division in our leagues and dominating back then. And I'm talking 12, 14 years ago. Still on this team, still getting stats. Great to see that from Cree Howard. But that's what I mean. The depth on this team to have somebody like Cree so far down your roster who was amongst the best of the world. Sure, a decade ago, it's kind of like having that GAC power and having this chiseled veteran who's seen it all, been there, done that. Still a big, tall, fast receiver, can be relied on in the end zone. Maybe I'm certain will have changed her roll up by now and can do a little bit of everything instead of a lot of one thing. That's generally how the veterans contribute. But yeah, great stuff from Fury.
Yeah, I think that also I heard that Fury hadn't won the US Open in like 8 years, so a massive victory for them. And then one more thing is strategically in the semi-final, I think Evan Lepler was saying throughout the tournament, Fury going towards a quick pick up and attack strategy when the disc's on the floor, and I was really excited to see that. And they threw got some nice quick breaks off of that, and I think that they found easier first passes from that. So I'm really excited to see that. I'm really excited to see if they continue that through to nationals. Looking at WUC in that division, we had TC Women, and they were really unlucky to not play a part in the semi-finals. I think they lost on Universe to Brute. Is that right?
They did, but not to Brute. They lost on Universe
in the quarters, right?
Where is it? They lost to Scandal on Universe.
Scandal on Universe. So I think that.
Anush.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, Anushka Bodri. I saw that. I didn't see that game, but I did see a D layout in the back of the end zone from Anushka, which was crazy. She gained like 4 meters in the last 20 and closed the door laying out. But yet, a shame they didn't make it. But probably a good test for them before they go to Australia. I mean, 1 month prior is kind of like the perfect amount of time. You can lick your wounds. You can be, be loose and limber, still have a week to travel, or at least travel time to shut down and taper before the event, with 2 weeks of still training, but not heavy competition before Worlds. So I think, it's a great opportunity for the Canadian teams and Australian Dingoes that went. We speak of the Canadian teams because they were in all 3 divisions. So mixed, Ann Arbor, hybrid, Michigan getting it done, beating BFG in the final 15-11. Did you get to take in much of the mixed division?
I watched a little bit of the mixed semi just to see what was going on with hybrid, basically. I think maybe the biggest surprise of the tournament, not just, hybrid have been good and got to the late stages of many tournaments, but because they don't have, these high profile players, and they're not from a big Frisbee city that you're like, Seattle or New York, they're going to be good. Raleigh and LA and California in general, Denver, all of these big cities that you're like, you just trust the team's going to be great. But Ann Arbor hybrid have been like sneaky good for 3 years and pull out a massive win here. I'm a big
sneaky good for a while. For me, they were like slightly less sneaky when I saw the U.S. Open roster being announced and seeing Nathan Shampoo on it. Mm-hmm. And then seeing, he's the only player on the best Open team in the world that's playing in the mixed division. And he certainly put his thumbprint on that game, but 3 goals, 3 assists, and 4 blocks, Ds.
Wow.
So that's a 10 stat game in the final. So when you see that, it's like, okay, yeah, there's a lot of talent in the mixed division, but I didn't watch this game, and I can't give much more commentary. But yeah, and I think back, I did throw shade when that was announced, but that's fine. I'm happy to throw the shade, and I'm happy to have it slapped back in my face. But wow, that is a performance on the stat sheet.
I'm a big Maddie Simcoe fan. I think that she is maybe the most important player for that team. I think that, like, I saw her make up yards on deep shots and lay out save discs, and she's been great for a long time. And that hybrid team, their O-line pretty steady, like strong throughout, and they make it through. They kind of benefit from the upset in the quarterfinal where Mischief beat Shame, the defending US national championships. They beat them 15-9, not a really close game. Reports are that Mischief had the game of their life or something, and didn't turn at all on the O-line, or didn't get broken at least at all on the O-line. So
put it all in the quarters and had nothing left in the semi, perhaps, or Hybrid was just that much better than everybody. But Hybrid, their closest game was their quarter as well against Lawless. They get through on Universe Point.
Yeah, so it could have been the other way, and I think there's the narrative about the US mixed division that it's high variance, and not a lot of tournaments prove that wrong. And once again, Hybrid making an upset, beating BFG in the final, who are probably, you get Hybrid and BFG in the final, you probably want to take BFG, and Hybrid proves the haters wrong. Proves the people who think that it's only going to be like me, it's going to be the teams from the big ultimate cities that are going to be great.
But... Or countries. Team Canada knocked out in the quarters by AMP, who was knocked out by BFG. Seattle Mixtape knocked out in pre-quarters by Exist, who was knocked out by BFG eventually. So yeah, that's
big margin as well, 15-7.
Yeah, 15-7, pounded.
They really
some interesting results.
Yeah, I mean they lost Vegas. I can't remember her real name, but Vegas after the 2022 season, I think they've never really fully recovered from that. And yeah, it's I think Mixtape really need to bounce back, and maybe they'll do that by 2026 and go and work again or something. Seems to be
let's see. Let's see. Until then, let's bounce out of the USA and back over to continental Europe. There were some matches this weekend in the EUF Summer Tour in Birmingham in the mixed division, and then in Malmö. But it wasn't even in Malmö because there were field issues. It was down the road in Lund. But yeah, in the open women's division. So why don't you start us off from Birmingham?
Yeah, so
Birmingham.
There were 5 teams in that tournament. A couple teams dropped out.
Hang on a sec.
Huh? What's up?
It's actually called the B-Ham, as far as I'm aware.
Yeah, B.
Okay, go on.
Apostrophe ham. It's not Birmingham. But yeah, Birmingham, lots of good Frisbee's been happening in Birmingham. That's also where World Juniors was happening. 5 teams go into that. We've got the big 3 in the UK mixed ultimate: Deep Space, Reading, Lemmings. Lemmings coming in with the Elite Invite auto bid after a fantastic performance there. And we also have Glasgow, a team who they won Spring Tour. Was that in Malmo as well? Or am I making that up? But it was in that region. It was sort of North Scandinavia area. And
yeah, it looks like it was in Malmo.
And BN1, which is my local team in Brighton. So as expected, a kind of separation between those two, between the top 3, bottom 2. And Deep Space go and win the whole thing with a 12-11 victory over Lemmings in the in the final there, so they will get the auto bid. Not that they needed it; they were going to make it pretty comfortably anyway. Rankings wise, I think that Lemmings, or like kind of perceptions wise, Lemmings getting that win over Reading 14-7 to me is kind of the standout result there, because in the semi-final of UK Nationals, Reading beat Lemmings and got into that final, and then played Deep Space to a 1-goal game and to a universe point game in the semis. So maybe there was kind of this idea that Deep Space Reading were there and Lemmings was just behind, and now I think that it's more like Reading and Lemmings are kind of together, with Deep Space being the top elite team after winning UK Nationals and winning here. But all of these three teams, I expect all three to be in the semi-finals, Stef. I was saying to you before the show that they're all super, super strong. On the back end, BN1 Glasgow. BN1 has had pretty poor results against the big three, but put out the win against Glasgow. I think Glasgow played the big three teams a little bit closer, but then obviously lost to BN1. Glasgow were kind of overseeded, to be honest. I think even maybe they would admit that going into the event. So their seeding's definitely going to drop. Are they going to stay in the top 16? It's going to be really close. We're going to find out later today, actually. And BN1, I don't know. I think that their rankings will kind of balance. So they were just outside the top 16 at about 20th position. I think that they may
22.
So they may go up a few places, but I'm not sure they'll get quite to the top 16. They'll need some favorable results as we move into the other EUCS mixed.
Well, there will be more chance. Yeah, exactly. 2 weeks' time, there's going to be some more summer tours, a lot more. So there is a chance. It'll be very interesting to see the Ravi show on In and Out this evening as we're recording this to see how this shakes up. Also, will be interesting to see what happens, the shakeups in the open women division that happened in Malmö up in Sweden. Ranelagh takes the crown and the ticket, the wild card in the open division. That's funny. We're in a commentator WhatsApp group, and Sam Murphy's in there as well. And we're kind of, Ranelagh kept winning, but by small margins. There's the blowout rule. They weren't blowing out teams. We're like pretty much John Docks, like pretty much every game that Ranelagh has is decreasing their ranking. Like, they better win this tournament now. Even though they kept winning, it was like, well, they were winning by less than the expectations. So it's like they're going down and they're going down and they're going down. In the final, they had their best game. They beat KFUM by 15-10. Still, they were supposed to beat them 15-8. But they did get the wild card. Ranelagh are definitely going to EUCF. KFK were reasonably good throughout the tournament, but didn't. They actually had Ranelagh in the semi. They had a lead, but Ranelagh scored 3 in a row to close the game out. Frisbees had. There was a couple surprise wins. Yes, Frisbees knocked out KFK on day one. That was exceeding expectations. KFUM made the final, and they had a spirit timeout game with Hardfish that perked a few questions, but no definitive answers. In the women's division, no wild card granted. What? Atletico went and beat the snot out of everybody pretty much. They were the Finnish team. They were awesome. 5-0 plus their score differential was where are they? Plus 49 on a 5-0 weekend. They've only played those 5 games for qualifying, so they don't have enough to qualify. So they will be given the wild card, and then it'll be taken away because they will forfeit. They knew they were not going to go. They're going to the tournament in Malmö because it's close to Helsinki. They can play. Again, there's a lot of things that have to be worked out for next year. Maybe not a EUF sanctioned qualifying event. Maybe shouldn't have teams that are illegitimately able to qualify. But Atletico was great. The rest were kind of beating each other. Gravity from Dublin, Seagulls from Hamburg, and Smog from where are they, Manchester or Edinburgh, they're North England, let's say. The North. Beating each other. They all went 3-2 through pool play, 3-3, and Dublin Gravity actually went 4-2 because they won their last game, and Seagulls lost in the final. But they seem to all not do themselves many favors. Didn't beat Aarhus and Hux by very, very convincing amounts. They're all, I mean, Smog was right in the 16th place going into the tournament. They're concerned, I know already that they're concerned they're not going to be able to make this tournament now. Seagulls outside looking in from 20th. They've got the same, and 21st. All three of those teams were like just outside of the ranking. None of them could put together an incredible tournament. I mean, I'm not as convinced as they might be that they can't make it in. I'll be very interested to see the summer tours in 2 weeks, how they shake out, because they will have now everybody's played one another. So these results will change things, but then the results in two weeks, because there are tournaments coming from everywhere in 2 weeks. We're going to be in Leicester. We'll be in we'll be in Warsaw, Chambéry, Freiburg, Heilbronn, Leicester, and Trnava. So those tournaments will have major bearing on this tournament. But yes, basically, Atletico wins. That will be a forfeited wild card.
So do they even want to go to EUCF?
They wish they could. I spoke to Inka Vestman and said, just go play 4 games now and
exactly.
Find a way to qualify. And she's like, we can't afford it anyways. We probably couldn't afford to go to EUCF. There's not enough players who have the money to do this. We hope EUF can fix this for next year, so there's more opportunity for us to do this without really traveling, was kind of the response. So they're hoping for the system to be a little bit more forgiving. They're clearly a team that is strong enough to be there. I mean,
100%.
A team that's smacking. Hang on, I got to go to these results again. But Malmo, they beat Copenhagen 15-5. They beat Smog 14-9. They beat Gravity 15-7, all single digits. The next day they went 15-7 in the final. They beat, okay, that's not Shout, that's not Jinx, that's not Yaka, that's not okay, but
they stomped all the
I
teams
think
who are about on the bubble of EUCF, right? So they must
exactly. They I would love to see a game against them versus Groot or something. I think that's a top quality game. They deserve to be there. I wish they could be there. They would only lift the level of
100%.
Ultimate in Europe and for that tournament, EUCF. So hopefully this is the last year we will have to not see a strong Finnish women's team going to the big show, but for this year that's the case.
All right, this is my plea. I know that Jinx needs some games. I don't know if you know the status of that, but Jinx, I believe, also are in this situation where they have the auto bid but need to kind of get enough games. So this is what I'm saying. Jinx, book some flights to Finland, go and play each other 5 times in a row. Both of you can go to EUCF. This is beautiful, okay? Because the Finnish don't want to travel, they can't afford it. You guys need some games. You both need some games.
It's not that far for Berlin. I mean, I don't know if I can say that.
It's not that far. There's going to be a Berlin to Helsinki flight. It's going to be cheap. I know it's the summer holidays, but just go and send some players. You don't even need, the scores don't even matter. Both of you will have auto bids, so that should happen. Get it sorted.
Yeah, make that happen.
But yeah.
Hang on. Let's just let's get to the bottom of this. they're not as cheap as we thought, Noah.
Oh no. Can they
No,
drop?
return's still about 300 euros. Yeah, that's not going to happen.
Boo. Split it.
Anyways, but I do know Berlin did have a game, or you can get one for less than 200, but it takes 8.5 hours with your stops. Berlin did play Warsaw Troubles last week. I saw that. They had an exhibition game. So I think Berlin have hit their quota now.
Okay.
Between Elite Invite, a game or two they got at Windmill, and then having this exhibition game.
Mm-hmm.
I do believe, I can't say that with full confidence, but I have some confidence that they've got their required games now.
Also, I mean, if you're maybe you're a team that's absolutely had a terrible spring tour, or maybe you think that you just need to play more games to win. Collude with Atletico. Atletico are going to have great ranking after this tournament. Say, Atletico will give you 5 games if you let us win. Everyone's a winner. Just cheat the system is what I'm saying, Stef.
Yeah.
But maybe don't.
I hear you.
Too loud because Ravi's going to come sniffing.
Ravi, they're looking for feedback, so that's fine. We're just not doing it through the feedback form. We're doing it through a podcast.
Let's wrap it up.
No, I think that's probably gonna have to do it. We do have more Ultimate coming up. We touched on the summer tours that are coming. Beyond that, the youth movement continues. We have the under-17s of Europe starting on Tuesday, which is 2 days. That's tomorrow. Goodness gracious, it's Monday already. Starting tomorrow, as we're recording this, by the time you're seeing this, it will probably be one and done. We're not going to get too far into our expectations.
It'll be like,
what's that?
By the time this gets out, it's going to be like semi-finals, quarterfinals day. So go watch it. Go get your, Solid Sports pass and
get your fix. Go get your fix. Solid Sport it up, and just go to the EUF website, and it'll prompt you how to go watch those games. But like we said, the youth are the future in the present. Go watch what they're doing. It's even more exciting, the younger age groups, the under 17. It's so much less predictable. And isn't that what we love about sport? The unpredictability. But thank you all for joining us. It's been a pleasure to bring you this. Thanks to Connor McHale for being our guest. Thanks for Noah Brinkworth. Next edition, we're going to pump out a few right now, but our next episode will be WUC Focus, and we will have the tournament director, Matt Ryan, on the next episode. So make sure you keep subscribed, hit the bells, make sure you are watching and waiting for everything to come out, because there's more and more coming, as you would hope to expect. Noah, any last words, mister?
I just want to say that I'm really excited for Summer Tour and for all of the rankings and the ranking talk, and I want rankings every hour in 2 weeks' time, because I'm really excited to see who's going to make UCF his stuff.
Ravi will be doing a show live or on the Saturday night in between day 1 and day 2 of that summer tour. So
I want him
something more to look forward to.
All Sunday, inputting scores as they happen.
Ravi, the human abacus, Vasudevan.
This is the score. Put it in the spreadsheet. See what happens. So excited.
Live score updates every minute.
Yep.
Thanks for joining us, guys. We'll see you next time.
See you next time.